Good morning everyone, today we're testing the limits of the Sony A1 in extreme conditions. We are in Antarctica and we're gonna get the crazy shot. We're gonna get Joey jumping in the snow. We're gonna get in the ice, get in the water. I wanna see what that bad boy has in the belly. I'm taking you on that ride. Oh my god, I'm still cold just looking at those photos. It took me like a really warm shower and some time to get back on track and be a normal human again. It is absolutely bonkers outside. It's like -20 at night, -10 in the daytime, and we had that crazy blizzard. Now, we got awesome photos during that shoot. We were able to stress test this camera, whether it was biking downhill in Chicago, I know we found a hill, or being on the glacier, or being in the middle of the blizzard and have the cameras completely covered in snow with literally snow that was like ingressing in the lenses between here on the camera. I really thought I would kill that camera or my A7S III, but it didn't. It survived. They went through it. They performed great. I'm gonna give you a little more about it in just a second. Before we get into the nitty-gritty details of that A1 and what I tested, I want to remind you that the 30-day advantage to great photos, my online workshop for photographers, is starting again very soon. Check the link in the description below to learn more and discover the program that has helped over 1,500 students around the world. Think about it as an online workshop with me over 30 days, and you get access to all the content that we cover for a lifetime after. So I invite you to join the next session and take your photography to the next level. Some of the students that went through it won an award for their photography, started their own business, got flown to Abu Dhabi to shoot races, and much more. So if you want to progress with me and take it to the next level, check the link in the description, learn more about it. And with that being said, let's get into the details of that A1. I want to share with you in terms of photos, how do I feel about it? What did I love about shooting with this camera? How does it perform in low light? And also, there was a point I think I kind of pushed it a little bit over the limit and it kind of froze on me. I'll expand on that in just a minute. The first thing I want to say is this camera is not going to be for everyone just because of the price point. Maybe at 3K or 2K, I would say, yeah, go get it, invest, it's going to be the best in the world. No, this camera is really tailored towards certain professionals, people who need the best of the best. It's literally the best of the A9 II, the best of the A7S III, everything built into one camera, and the A7R IV with high megapixels. So we've got 50 megapixels who have been very helpful because I was able to recrop some photos that were a little wide. We also have a burst mode that we talked about, which is already 30 frames per second, which is insane. If you haven't seen the unboxing and initial review, like when we talk about the body and the buttons, all that, I'll link the video below. But what you have to know is having 30 frames per second or 20 frames per second is great, but it also means you're going to be shooting a lot, and in many circumstances it is not necessary. If you're shooting portraits, lifestyle, if you're shooting street, you don't need to shoot that fast. Yet if you're shooting action, if you're on jobs for the press, etc., this will be something that you want. Obviously you'll probably use only JPEGs and not the raw images because it's a nightmare to go through. I had like 2,300 images from those 2 hours outside, and yeah, that was a little bit excessive in my opinion. Now let's talk about what I absolutely love with this camera. The first thing is that there is this mode when you're shooting panning and you're tracking a subject, it actually somehow freezes each frame for maybe 0.1 second. I'm not sure how to explain it, but it makes it easier to see a subject move and see what you're capturing actually. And this is something that I tested in the POV I did shooting streets in the blizzard. You might have seen there was a point I was actually referring to that, and it made it easier for me to do some panics. Yet I was in the blizzard and snow, so they didn't turn out great, but I feel I'm gonna use that more in the future. Now, when we talk about speed and burst, all that, the most important question that people will ask is how fast can you clear the buffer? And the buffer on the camera clears out really quickly. What do I mean by really quickly? First of all, something has been greatly improved is that even though you have a buffer that is full, you can actually access all the menus and do things. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. It's not stopping, keeps on going. I probably took 1,000 or 500 photos. This is just insane. What I will recommend if you do invest in this camera is going to be get the best memory card possible. Get the CF Express Type A and get also V90 cards, because that will clear up your buffer a lot faster. The CF Express Type A, to be honest, I didn't even have time to say hello that the buffer was cleared. So that was really impressive, and I was shooting in raw compressed. I don't really see the value in shooting uncompressed or lossless because there's already so much information in a raw image that I feel like I have enough. I don't really see the difference, to be honest, between lossless, uncompressed, and compressed. So if I can save a little bit of time and space, this is going to be great. All right, let's talk about the focus, autofocus. How was it? Well, the autofocus was excellent. We were shooting Joey going downhill and Toby on their bike in the snow. And even when I made mistakes and Joey started going first and I didn't even realize, the camera was able to pick it up and track the subject all the way. And that is something that is very helpful. And that was on the Sony 85mm f1.8. It wasn't even on a GM lens, which means that you can be safe, in my opinion, and you will know that the camera will track properly. We also did tests in the blizzards where I was jumping inside the snow. Everyone was jumping in the snow, and it picked us up and tracked us perfectly. Now, there is something to know about tracking and the way you use your autofocus. A7 III can do a perfect job, a great job. A7R4, same. But you gotta understand and really train to understand which mode is going to be the best. For example, if you have a subject that's going to enter your frame, most of the time, if the subject passes too fast, your camera won't have time to pick it up. I feel that the A1 picked it up quickly enough, but I would still try as much as possible maybe to tap focus and tap track on my subject while the moment it enters the frame. Why is that? Is that I feel that it will do a better job. You know, as much as we want to rely on the camera, we still need to work on those skills of being able to choose the right focus point. And sometimes, you know what, manual focus is the best. You just focus where the person is going to be, and that way you can compose and frame perfectly and have that. Now, you're thinking, well, why do I have such an expensive camera if I'm going to do that? That's a very good question. That's very valid, but sometimes you want to make sure you get the shot perfectly. Cameras and technology cannot replace sometimes our human eye and our ability to create exactly what we want. Okay, now on top of the very fast tracking and autofocus that literally has no problem, I think it's probably one of the best on the market. The R5 is excellent too. I don't think you can go wrong with any recently. Now, it also has 3 modes for eye tracking, one for human, animals, and birds. Apparently, animals and birds have been separate somehow. But here's a hack that I heard is that, and I tested it earlier, if you put your tracking in animal, it will also track human eye, but it will also track animals. But if you put it in human, it won't track animals. So if you're switching between dogs and people, sometimes it can be helpful. Birds, I haven't tried it, or to be honest, all the birds left Chicago because it's way too cold. Okay, now low light. This is going to be a question a lot of you are going to ask. How does it perform in low light? So we shot in low light the other night with Joey when we're like by the water, and it was, again, it looked like we were in the Arctic. It was so extreme. I wasn't ready for it. I started like freezing on spot. What happens is that when you're shooting in low light, your normal ISO range is going to be up to 32,000 ISO on the A1, and it's going to perform well, in my opinion, up to 12,800, maybe 20,000. You can see on some of those photos, it gets up when you zoom in, obviously 100%, which is massively zoomed in because it's a 50 megapixel image. But what I realized is that the A7S III will be better if you're shooting in really low light conditions, because the A7S III above 12,800 ISO will switch to a different mode or like processing in order to get even better images in low light. And I've shot with it at ISO 54,000, and you've seen the results when I was shooting in helicopters and stuff. It looks beautiful. Now this one will let you down a little bit earlier, but again, I don't think this is your low light king camera because it has 50 megapixel. You need to balance it out. You can't have everything in a way in one camera. It's very close to having everything, but the low light will still be better on the A7S III in very low light conditions. Now, it's very usable. I would absolutely put it to the 25,000 ISO limit and shoot with it without even thinking about it. I know I can recover the images a little bit in post. They're gonna be a little softer, but it's not that bad, to be honest. A little goodie that I really like is now, with this one, and I think the A7S III same, with the Sony app, you can actually tap to focus straight from the phone. And that is very helpful in my opinion, because so far I could never focus when I was remote using this camera. So finally, you're able to tap focus and get exactly the shots that you want in focus, because before you had to pre-focus, get to the right spot. Now you finally just tap on the screen and you get the focus. So that's a little gadget that I really love. Now when it comes to video, I'm not the video expert. There's tons of videos that came out on YouTube about the video capabilities, but so far the 8K, people have been able to record for more than 3 hours, 4 hours in 8K in camera without it overheating or shutting down. It also had the 4K 120 frames per second, which is great. You might have seen it, and I'm gonna give you in a minute the reason why I might get this camera. Last I want to touch on is going to be the weather sealing. So you've seen how I was shooting and the POV in the street during the blizzard, or when we were with Toby and Joey. By the way, go subscribe to their channels, go say hi to them on Instagram. Absolutely nice human beings. And also we had Craig, first time shooting with you. It was great. The one thing I want to say, if you're afraid when you go in those conditions, make sure you have a hot shoe cover on your camera, because that's where most of the problems might arise from, and also from the flange connection between the lens and the camera. So make sure you have a lens that is actually weather sealed, so that that little part right there is going to be covered properly. I did not have any issues. I came home, it was dripping, there was water everywhere, there was snow everywhere. It melted, I wiped it down, and it worked perfectly. There was one point only when we were out there, and I don't know why, but the camera slightly froze on me, and I wasn't sure exactly why it froze. I removed the battery and then it came back to life. I don't know if my lens was acting funny because it had literally snow and ice going into it, and maybe the electronics didn't like it, or whatever happened. But remove the battery, put it back in, shook it a little bit to get rid of snow, and it was back normal working. So that is something I can rely on. This is something that is very important for me. I don't know how it's gonna perform with salt water, but I don't think any cameras like salt water, even a 1DX Mark II. To recap, am I going to get this camera? Because remember guys, no one's paying me for this camera. I have to send it back. So yes, I'm going to invest in the A1 for several reasons. It's going to replace my A7 III, my A7R III in one camera. It can do great video, great photos, high definition, great autofocus. I'm going to have a high burst mode if I need that, just to play the influencer like in Polynesia. People shoot here. And most importantly is that I feel like this is going to be my all-in-one camera that I can trust for years to come, right? And that is very important. My business allows me to do that, and the shoots I go on are usually a little bit extreme, and I need something that I can really count on. I never had a problem, I will say, with my A7R III or my A7 III, but I also didn't have the same autofocus capabilities. I didn't have the same megapixel count, and I couldn't do 4K 120 frames per second. I couldn't do also 8K. 8K will come handy if I'm shooting handheld and I want to stabilize in post, and 4K 120 frames per second. All my content now is in 4K, so it's going to be handy to have both the A7S III that I'm using now and this one, so I can grab some clips on the go and use it even if someone is shooting me with the A7S III. So that's for my personal needs. It's going to be very individual. I kind of want to know what you guys think. Are you thinking about it? Does your business allow it? Does it make sense for you? It's the price of a car for many people, so this is not an investment you want to consider lightly. Do you think we finally have the one camera to rule them all, just like Lord of the Rings? Or do you think this is overkill for most people and that we shouldn't actually get it? Now remember, before you invest in gear, invest in your skills, take them to the next level. It's gonna be a lot cheaper and it's gonna have a lot more impact than changing camera. With that being said, get out there, go shoot, try something different, try something new. I'll see you in the next one.